Hey, it's old friendly neighbor Chili Bu, and I am live in the deepest, darkest Chilcotin. But as you saw, we enjoyed another amazing Chilcotin sunrise together, so give thanks for the gift that is today, eh? I'm going to preface this rant and blaze with a little bit of a, disclaimer to some extent. My rant and blazes are based on the fact that I am far removed from the cannabis community, meaning that I have some personal interactions with a few folks that are in it, some folks that I highly respect that have been consistent with their message and with their values. And I have a lot of respect for that, and I hold them in high regard. Those folks know who they are. But being so far removed and not having any vested interest in what goes on in the cannabis community scene, be it in Toronto, but more specifically here in Van, because I'm going to touch on what's been going on from my perspective here over the last, we'll just say 4 or 5 years. But some of the players that I'm going to be talking about have been involved in this for a lot longer. I'm not coming with you with this negativity and aggression because that is the type of individual I am. No, I am all about that. Hey man, peace, love, and blessings. Good vibes to you and yours, Remember back in the 70s, those of you who are of that age demographic, they taught the golden rule in public school. And that was simply to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So even though at times I may be a little rough around the edges, so to speak, my heart is in a good place and I genuinely care for people. But I am also fucking unfiltered for the most part and for the better part of my 52 years. I calls it like I sees it. So having said that, when I'm talking about certain individuals in the cannabis community that I have noticed that have gotten fat, well, hey, I understand that some folks out there have different health issues that cause them to have excessive weight. Now, there are things that we can do, whether it be diet and exercise, to help augment that and fight that off, but some folks are just so comfortable and so fucking lazy that it doesn't matter. Now, I'm not talking about people with medical issues. I'm talking about those fucking fat cats. You see folks, and over the course of a few years, they seem to chunk up. Now, are they chunking up because they're not doing much, or they're just eating crap and they're sitting around? No, some folks are doing very, very well. They're feeding off the corporate tit in one way or another, and they're getting fat with it. So it's those fat fucks that I direct my sort of vehemence towards.
Hey, fatty! Stay hungry, you fat fucking pig! Hungry motherfuckers accomplish shit! Stay hungry! Stress eating is for fucking pussies! Wah! Wah!
Most folks out there, let's talk about those medical patients. Most folks out there, specifically medical patients, are on some type of fixed income. Housing costs what they are. Wow, if you live in a major metropolitan area, you're getting hosed just to have a roof over your head. Now you factor in trying to eat a healthy diet, or maybe you have medical issues that you need specific types of food. Like, those folks are at the biggest disadvantage, yet you have those fat fucking cats getting fat off of medical patients, living high on the hog, Well, most folks are having problems trying to source a clean, organic medical cannabis source, or have a clean food source, or pay their fucking hydro, or pay their other bills. Keep that roof over their head, so to speak. Yeah, we got fat cats that are just oblivious to that, all the while talking out of one side of their mouth and saying something out of the other, but we won't get off on that tangent. So, welcome to another Random Blaze. I'm going to talk the shit out of this doobie. I'm looking at a opinion that I put up on social media yesterday, specifically talking about the unfortunate bust that happened to a dispensary. The medical cannabis dispensary on Thurlow in Vancouver was raided by the CSU, which is when you buy legal weed here in Canada, the proceeds of the sales of that legal weed in taxation form goes to fund the CSU. So all you fuckers out there buying legal weed, fuck you, because you're actually taking avenues where people can get medical cannabis products off the table so that they're just getting shuttled into that little LP gate. So anyways, this happens to be Dana Larson's um, dispensary. Now, I only know Dana Larson from what I've seen online, and I only know Dana Larson from what I've seen online by what he's put on social media, and the behavior characteristics of individuals that are always on social media all the time. You see a pattern develop. You do. So it's a given that Dana's been a proponent for you know uh, cannabis to be legalized to some extent. The draconian laws that prefaced the Cannabis Act. Oh my God, those 8 laws under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act that sort of were the criminal parameters of how you could be charged with cannabis. He fought for a long time. He fought for a long time against that, along with the sort of social group that made up the cannabis culture down in Vancouver. So you've got your Matt Murnaws and your what's that fucking seed guy, Mark Emery. I can touch on Mark Emery because my interaction with that motherfucker goes back to '82 when he was managing part-time what the hell was that called? The Mystic Bookshop on east of Adelaide. It was before he took over City Lights, and he got infamous for his The Emperor Wears No Clothes and opening against Sunday shopping. But yeah, when he was in his early 20s, he was skeezing on those high school girls from CCH and Beale in London, Ontario, east of Adelaide. Guaranteed, I can tell you that from my own knowledge and experience of being there. So that motherfucker is greasy as fuck. He is a sellout because, hey, when he was opening cannabis culture, fucking Tangent Engage, pa-ching! When he was managing and opening those cannabis culture stores all over the place, trying to provide the weed to the general public, anyone over the age of 19, blah, blah, blah. In concept, a good idea. But the fact that the price points from many people that I know that have shopped at different cannabis cultures, East and West Coast, you're gouging fucking people, man. You're putting profits over people. Now, second tangent engaged. This is somewhat the norm in the dispensary model. I know that from my own experience, having seen markup of 100% on products, and I've heard it from people that have visited them that you more often than not get a better variety of selection. It's usually a better quality, but then again, like some commercial cannabises and like some commercial croppers in the past, you get stuff that's just made to get out the door as fast as possible. It's not cured properly. It's not dried properly. They throw whatever the fuck they can on it to keep the bugs, keep the mold off it, get as big as bud as possible, because that is what cash cropping is all about. I understand that. I'm not a proponent of that. I'm not a fan of that. But we've all been subjected to commercialized cannabis at some point, in some extent, over our lives. So these dispensaries, they're really not getting supplied by small mom and pops. And by small, I'm talking, like 5 lights or less. To me, that's a small mom and pop. If you've got 5, 10, 20, 30 lights, that's cool. But you start getting to a point with the size of your grow that it's almost like a commercial kind of grow. So nothing wrong with that either. But you and I, those that grow and those in the know, understand the actual price point to generate cannabis cost per gram per se. The smaller you are, you could have an overhead that means that, if you sold an ounce of cannabis for $150 theoretically, that's just over $5 a gram. So you're making a profit and you're covering your overhead. So it's not egregious in that manner. But if you're one of these dispensaries and you're buying pounds from a larger producer, so to speak, and I mean a craft mom and pop with a bunch of lights, and you're selling that gram of cannabis for, $10, $11, $12, $14. There was some really outrageous price points on grams in cannabis culture. So not to bemoan that, but that was just the example I'm using for you, okay? The other thing that I find kind of fucking hanky about cannabis culture is some of the personalities that made up their TV, whatever, they were like very wishy-washy. And in the past, I've talked about spineless fucks sitting on the fence of legalization. I think there was one point in time they wanted to try to be part of that legal market. So that means you're basically taking your years of previous thought process and activism against the system and fighting for cannabis rights, and you're tossing it out the window because you want to be part of the fucking system that you fought against. Now again, harkening back to the scene in Vancouver, over the years we've seen like the Matt Murnaws. It was in, was it 2018? 2018. Vancouver Island's very own Matt Barron, House of the Great Gardener, another transplant from Ontario, ends up and going and working for one of the worst LPs in regards to how they treat people, how they treat the patients, and how they treat the plant. He took his fucking circle jerk buddy, Kirk Tusaw, noted cannabis defense lawyer forever, it seems, and they went to, get the band back together, so to speak, in Barron's words, to fight from within and make sure that, you and I and the patient, we're getting a fair shake. How's that working for you patients out there? Hey, how's it going? Oh, by the way, in case you haven't heard, Kirk Tusaw has transitioned from being cannabis lawyer to master grower under the tutelage of Matt Barron. So it's nice how that works. And those two fucks are getting fat too. Just because, you notice that. So here is the comment back on tangent number 1. Bless up, thanks for sticking around. That had to deal with the raid on Fat Dana Larson's dispensary.
Start stress fasting, you fat motherfucker. Okay?
See, there I am. Is that fat shaming? I don't know. Dana, you let yourself go, man. Just let yourself go. So, here's my comment. My opinion may not be very popular, but I don't give a fuck. But this businessman, wannabe politician is trying to be part of a legal system. Is that to provide that good government weed to the patients? Well, I never like to see those most in need of medical cannabis be denied, but I also see profits over people with hacktivists, like that word, hacktivists, who want to be part of the system once they fought the ones they fought. Good divvy. All right, let's just rewind the tape. I never like to see those most in need of medical cannabis be denied, but I also see profits over people with hacktivists. The ones who want to be part of the system that they once fought valiantly against. Hey, take your noise underground if need be to provide true access to those most in need, but to acquiesce and willingly want to sell cannabis subjected to the vilification that Health Canada has set forth. Someone has a workaround? And then I put in parentheses, who will notice a little craft cannabis, eh? But as we know from what's been reported in the mainstream media, that might work for the bigger players who seem to have a separate set of rules for them as opposed to the rest of us. And that just seems to go along with that dual justice system that we have here in Canada, eh? Maybe he can show some more of his overpriced microdoses to folks. Again, I see profits over people. You can see who's really doing well as the who's who of the cannabis community is getting fat. Life must be good, eh? So that was just a little thing in parentheses. And if you didn't know about the microdosing thing, Larson, through whatever his dispensary at one point in time earlier this year, was selling, I think 100 milligram and 250 milligrams, so a tenth of a gram and a quarter of a gram ground up doses in gel caps of psilocybins for microdoses at a ridiculous price point. I think it was going to be work out to be $10 a gram if you were buying it in that. So if you bought 4 of these quarter caps, it would cost you $10 or $20. This is ridiculous. And those in the know here in BC specifically, you can find magic mushrooms between, if you know a guy, you can get $80, $100, sometimes 125. It doesn't matter, but it's really fucking cheap. And to do that is just speaks volumes as to the motivation of such individuals. Wow, good doobie. Just for those who want to know, this is a little bit of Mama's chili balm and some BC Godbud mixed together. So it's like a slap in the head. It's a resiny fucking doobie. So back on tangent. But what do I know, sitting well removed from the clusterfuck that is Vancouver, watching the cannabis community with its decades of historical efforts to truly free the weed, culminating in selling out left, right. There's greasy skeezers making bank from subpar commercial grows, touting it as medical. And I've kind of touched on that. So yeah, a fucking mess to say the least. And at the end of the day, it is not the Dana Larsens that suffer, because hey, if you choose to lay with dogs, you're gonna get fleas. But the folks who had access with relative ease to what they needed and now have to go elsewhere and incur a higher price point, or in the case of the good government weed, have to utilize a lesser product at that higher price point. So rant end. This was responded to by a couple of people. One of them was a fellow by the name of Scott Henderson that says, I suppose if you're unaware of it or unwilling to discount Dana's many years of cannabis activism, then your entire statement would perhaps be valid. So this is the problem with cognitive dissonance that happens with people. I'm not discounting some of the stuff that Dana's done, but there's a means to an end. When individuals like that are taking upon themselves to make so much noise and stand on their little soapbox and puff up their chest with some bravado and think they're all that in a bag of chips and assist boom bah and rally the troops, but you've also seen the direction at what many of these folks have gone, not only in their business choices and the choices that have a sort of a ramification on how they actually think and feel. And here's an example. I give this to a lot of folks, but most of you are aware of the counterculture movement of the 1960s, mid-60s to late 60s specifically. There was a lot of folks that got on the bandwagon to tune in, turn in, and drop out. In theory, it's all right to do that every now and then. It really is. It's a bit of a reset, I guess you could say. But my greater point is, these individuals, by design, backed by parasites that be, and alphabet agencies, utilized this counterculture movement to motivate and direct, literally, a generation. And this generation became so disenfranchised with everything and so lost in the counterculture ideology that led them to go into the next decade with a lot of anger and hate by design. These very revolutionaries, these very Abby Hoffman type individuals from the late 60s, within a matter of a decade and a half, by the early 80s, by the yuppie boomer, baby boomer generation of the early 80s, they had sold out and become part of the very establishment that they rallied an entire generation to fight against. And I see the very same thing that happens with the fucking Marcus Richardson, Bubble Man, fucking John Burfello sitting on the fence waggling his thing, fucking, Mark Emery going to offer services to the highest bidder. A lot of these people over time have just wanted to do nothing but establish a brand, and doesn't matter what the price is, they want to be part of the system that they fought against, the system that they worked diligently to undermine. Again, a lot of these folks in the cannabis culture scene of the BC area started, the folks in my age demographic started this back in the late 80s and early 90s, so to speak, mid 90s. A lot of them did a lot of hanky stuff and were part of that, the union, the business of getting high. If you haven't seen that, a lot of us in this culture, in some way, shape, or form, have been involved in the unraveling that is set forth that we know as legalization now. And far too many people are looking at these people as icons of the industry and not seeing that they live on their little pedestals. They live a lifestyle that is far removed from the average person, specifically, like I said at the beginning of this video, the average medical cannabis user. So Scotty Henderson and all those other folks out there that just want to keep drinking the Kool-Aid and thinking that everything's okay, it's not. You have to understand, you've been sold out. All right. Chores to be done. Not even a half a doobie in the books. My eyes are glazed like a donut. And like a donut, I'm going to roll. So I'll catch you later. Peace, love, and blessings from the farm. Have a great week. Take care of yourself. Take care of one another. Free the weed, babies. Free the weed.
When I get stressed out at all, if there's any stress in my life, I don't eat to fucking compensate for the fucking stress. I starve the fuck out of myself. That I'm still making gains. Okay? This last fucking 2 weeks. Okay, I rented a fucking house, started a fat camp. Okay, I got 2 fucking people I'm taking care of now. Okay? I'm fucking paying a fucking pile for fucking rent for this fucking place. I had to move. Okay, it's fucking getting to be winter here now.
Think for yourself. Question authority.